Live stream, we're going to be talking about why you should be eating protein for your first meal when you break a fast. So I would really appreciate everyone here. Let's get right to it. Let me just lower the phone. So let's go over exactly what we're going to cover and what we're going to talk about in this live stream today. We're going to talk about mTOR. I'm going to give you a real simple explanation about mTOR, the importance of it. Then we'll go over all the benefits of eating what I consider to be a relatively high protein diet. I think it's the most important macronutrient. Then we'll go over exactly how much protein you should eat, whether you're fasting, whether you're not fasting, just for good health. Then we'll go over the importance of eating complete proteins. We're going to break down all the essential amino acids in great detail. Then we'll cover all the different good sources of protein, how you should get enough protein and eat enough protein within your diet. And then we're going to go over this little bit of a 10 a.m. protein hack that I've personally been doing. Even though I've been fasting, 16, 18 hours a day, my favorite is still an 18-hour fast. I've been sneaking in some protein earlier in the day, primarily based on all the new research showing how important it is to take in protein earlier in the day. And then, as normal, we'll do a Q&A at the end, and I'll show you a whole bunch of meals on how I've been breaking my fast lately. And I'll just give you some idea of some good meals in general that are high in protein. But let me say hello to everyone. I think we got a few people here already. Let's pull up the comments. Once again, I don't seem to be seeing any comments through the feed, but I'm seeing them. I'm not seeing them on the phone either. I'm going to jump right into it. I'm just going to assume that everything is good. The sound is good. The picture's good. If there's any issues, oh, Gwen is here. Oh, there we go. New mic. I think that's the issue. I don't think I have my mic in place. Did everyone hear what I initially said? I'm going to repeat this because maybe the mic wasn't kicking in properly. Let me start over this. Let me start this whole thing over. Okay, what we're going to cover. Hey, Gene's here. Thanks. Bad audio. Okay, that's good. Let's repeat this whole thing. Okay, so let's go over exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the importance of breaking your fast. Your first meal of the day, in my opinion, should be relatively high in protein. So we're going to cover what mTOR is, which is pretty much growth signaling. I'm going to break that down on a slide. Then we'll go over all the benefits of eating protein. Why protein, in my opinion, is the most important macronutrient. Then we're going to go over how much protein you should eat every single day, whether you're fasting, whether you're not fasting. I find that when people are fasting, they don't really take in enough protein, and it's so important to take in an adequate amount of protein. Then we'll go over the importance of eating complete proteins. We're going to break down all the essential amino acids, the 9 essential amino acids. I'll go over which ones I think are even the most important, the branch chain within the 9 amino acids. Then we'll go over all different good sources of protein. I'll show you how I've been eating. We'll go over a little hack that I've been doing around 10 a.m. I've been taking in some protein earlier in the morning, even though I'm still doing my 16 to 18 hour fast most days. Based on all the new research, I think it's really important to maybe take in some protein earlier in the day to the circadian rhythm, like we talked about last week. And then, as usual, we'll do a big Q&A at the end, and I'll give you some real good examples of exactly how I've been eating. Okay, so I'm assuming now the sound is all good. Sorry, I don't think I had the mic in the proper place, but let's say hello to everyone. Gwen is here, which is great. I know. Miller, awesome. Good morning. We got Gene, which is fantastic. Thanks for letting me know about the mic, Gene. Okay, Steve, my man from California. So happy to see you and Steve. Hope the family's doing good. All good. Harriet says everything is good, which is great. Patel, good afternoon. Watching from London, UK, which I love that. Once again, when you leave your comments, if I don't already know you, it'd be nice. I love to know where you're from. I get so excited doing these live streams from people from all around the world are here. So it's so fun. It's so much fun. Blue Sky, good morning. Oh, great to see you here. Fantastic. That's great. Okay, let's jump right into it. I want to give everyone a real simple explanation of mTOR. See, mTOR can be incredibly complex, but let's look at it really simply. And mTOR is pretty much the main reason why I think whenever you break your fast, even when you're not intermittent fasting, your first meal of the day, in my opinion, should be high in protein, have an adequate amount of protein in it, basically because of mTOR. Now, I'm going to blow this up, even if it covers my face a little bit. See, it says mTOR. These are genes. The mTOR is kind of like a gene, like a protein gene that creates signaling, growth signaling. It's a little complex, but let's break it down like really simply. What it stands for is mammalian target of rapamycin, mTOR. I just call it mTOR. Most people call it mTOR. I may have even pronounced that wrong, but you're going to get the gist of what I'm talking about, whether I pronounced it right or wrong. Okay, what mTOR does, and I'm going to talk about it in the respect of protein synthesis of, like, putting on muscle, maintaining muscle mass growth. So mTOR signals growth and protein synthesis. And protein synthesis just means is that you're putting on and maintaining muscle, right? When mTOR is low, you go into more repair maintenance mode, more like autophagy. Like I talk about autophagy a lot in the past, which is a recycling of weak and damaged organelles. So either the body is growing or repairing, right? So for example, when you've been fasting all night, or when you've not eaten for a long period of time, and say you're doing a 16-hour fast, mTOR is like down-regulated, and autophagy is kicking in, like you're in repair mode. So that's why I think it's so important to stimulate mTOR with your first meal of the day when you're breaking a fast. And that's going to be like the gist of this whole presentation. Like, for example, other things that stimulate mTOR is like insulin growth factors. Insulin, when insulin's elevated, mTOR's elevated. So when you eat a meal, primarily like protein and carbohydrates, you're going to stimulate mTOR. And it's going to help you put on muscle, maintain muscle. It's going to help you with protein synthesis. So keep that in mind. It can be incredibly complex when you're studying an mTOR and autophagy, but I just want you to have a basic, really elementary understanding of it. And I even made some notes here. Insulin and amino acids, specifically leucine, which is one of the non-essential amino acids, is great for activating and stimulating mTOR. That's why certain proteins, like that's why when I'm taking a protein powder, I do like a whey protein, because whey is very high in leucine. But I'm going to break that down more in some other slides. So any questions about mTOR or protein synthesis? I know this is like just a really simple, basic understanding, but just think either it's like you're growing and getting bigger and stronger when you stimulate mTOR and increase growth, increase protein synthesis. And then when you're in a fasted state, right, insulin is low, there's no food in your system, so you're down regulating mTOR, and you're up regulating like AMPK and sirtuins and autophagy. And that's just a real simple explanation. I know I'm repeating myself, but I really want to drive this point in. So that means that when you're fasting for like an 18-hour, 16-hour period, it's so important, in my opinion, for your first meal of the day, just to stimulate that mTOR, to stimulate that growth, to eat a meal that's relatively high in protein. And we're going to break that down in great detail as we go. Okay, that's the most sciencey part of this like little presentation. But we'll keep on referencing mTOR. But let's talk about all the benefits of eating protein, right? Proteins are the building blocks of the body, right? I'm such a big believer in eating an adequate amount of protein. Back to that mTOR thing. Like, for example, there are people, and there is some research saying that you can overdo mTOR. Like if you're eating like tons of protein, like multiple times during the day, and you're not fasting at all, and you're just pounding protein 6-7 times a day, yes, there is some research showing that protein can help tumor growth and things like that. That's why I like intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating so much, is that you have that perfect combination of increasing mTOR when you do eat. Say you're eating within an 8-hour eating window, 6-hour eating window, but then when you don't eat, you're down-regulating mTOR. So I think the combination is the ideal for longevity, for health, for maintaining muscle mass. Up-regulating it and then down-regulating it. But the key is, especially when you're fasting, and the more and more people I work with, going over their diets who have been intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, is that I really feel they're not getting enough protein. When you have a short eating window, obviously you're reducing calories, but you have to prioritize protein, in my opinion. It's a key factor, I find, to getting all the benefits of all these different fasting strategies and different fasting protocols. Oh, Jeff's here too. Can you make the slides a little bigger? Yes, Jeff, definitely will. Let me make him a little bit bigger. I'm going to scoot this camera over a little bit. I'm going to move it over. I'm going to scoot to the right, and I'll make these slides a little bit. Let me go back. Maybe you're talking about that mTOR slide too, because I know this science could be a little confusing. Let me just, once again, the mTOR is just growth signaling. It's going to increase, your muscle mass is going to create protein synthesis. It's a hard word for me to say. Okay. So let's go over all the other benefits, right? Like I said, it's the building blocks of the body, and the key to eating like good high quality protein is to make sure you're getting all the 9 essential amino acids. And this is what I mean by essential amino acids. There were 20 amino acids that kind of build proteins. That there were tons of amino acids, but the ones that build protein that help with protein synthesis, there were 20, but 9 are essential, meaning that you have to get these amino acids from your diet. Your body can't make them. Some of the non-essential ones your body can make, and even the conditional ones where the body can make most of the time, unless you're like under stress or you're sick or you got something going on in your body. So it's so important to take in complete protein. And we're going to break down what complete proteins are. The other reason why I think protein is the most important macronutrient, there are 3 macronutrients: protein, fats, and carbs. Some people consider alcohol to be a 4th. Is that protein has the highest thermic effect. And I talk about this all the time. See, the thermic effect is so important because the thermic effect creates heat within the body. Like, for example, when you eat 100 calories of protein, let's say you're having, like a few ounces of shrimp or something, you're going to burn up 20, 25, even up to 30% of those calories just digesting and processing the protein. That's why, like they say, all calories are not created equal. It's so important. So you can, example, have someone eating, say, 1,500 calories who's eating a low protein diet, and someone else who's eating 1,500 calories eating a high protein diet. I like to say an adequate amount of protein diet. Their net calories are going to be so much less by eating the protein. Plus, there's so much research saying that protein is the most satisfying out of all the macronutrients, even more than fat. You eat a nice piece of salmon, a nice sized steak, you're not going to be hungry for hours. So satiety is so key to it. Plus, protein is just so enjoyable to eat. Let's see. Oh, Gene, once again, Gene hits me up with another super chat. Gene, I really appreciate it. I love you doing this. It really, makes me feel good that you're supporting the channel, which is great. Okay, let's see what Gene's got. Okay, super chat. Help some friends move. Okay, this was Gene's talking about last week. Gene, helped some friends move last weekend, and it triggered my appetite so much I had to eat. Took a lot out of me to motivate myself the day after. Yeah, that happens, But I find, like, back on this protein topic, that's happened to me too, everyone. But even if you have like an overeating day or a cheating day, it's probably, if you're doing it like carb heavy, and you're getting those big spikes in blood sugar, and the whole story, right? When your blood sugar goes up from eating from overeating or primarily eating a ton of carbohydrates, the pancreas produces that insulin to lower that blood sugar, and then all of a sudden you're hungry. If you can, next time, Gene, try to eat a lot of protein. Have 2 hamburgers. Try not to eat the bun. Eat a pound of beef if you have to, or something. Eat a lot of chicken. Eat a lot of fish. Do things like that if you can. It'll definitely make, I find, the next day easier to jump back on track. I know myself, if I go out for like a nice, I'm Italian and mostly Italian, and I love eating pasta. I know Steve, my Steve in California, he makes incredible pasta. I know he knows how to make great sauce and great pasta and all that. If I have a big bowl of pasta, I just feel like I want it every single day. It's kind of like a trigger food. So I would say, if you can, Gene, try to minimize the trigger foods, even when you're having a cheat day. Okay. Still 240 pounds. That's good, though, 240, though. I think that's pretty good, right? I mean, I think you're on track. So I'm assuming you overall, besides that one day, overall you're doing well, which is great. Awesome. Okay, so it's the highest thermic effect. And I always like to bring this up, even though this is not really a mainstream, thesis, the protein leverage hypothesis, which I'm such a believer in this. I have to go back into the research. I'm definitely a big believer that your body just craves and wants an adequate amount of protein. And if most of your diet consists of foods that are low in protein. Let's say you're eating a lot of pasta, you're eating a lot of rice, you're eating a lot of potatoes. Maybe eating some protein, maybe eating like 50 grams of protein a day, where your body may need 150 grams. You are going to keep eating until you get as close as possible to your protein requirement for the day. And if you're picking foods that are low in protein, you're just going to be overeating. Just like if you're low in certain vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, it's going to create hunger within your body, and you're going to overeat. That's why protein is so key for satiety and just keeping you like hormonally and just your whole body satisfied. If all the foods you're eating are low in protein, I think you're going to have a difficult time being an optimal weight. Okay, and like I said, very satisfying, fills you up, stops you from overeating, no question about it. The key macronutrient to eat, I think, is totally protein. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's go over protein requirements. And yeah, if you show up for these live streams every week, you know, you've heard me say this multiple times, but you know, you can't hear it enough because it's so important. Even myself, you know, I try to eat about 150 grams of protein, you know, every single day, but sometimes, you know, it's not easy. You got to make a real conscious effort to eat enough protein. And I also want to talk about this goal of 30 to 60 grams per meal. I'll talk about it, you know, at the end of this slide, because I just listened to an incredible podcast, once again, from one of my favorite podcasters, 𝘾𝙊𝘼𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. His podcast is called The Drive. And he had on like a PhD who's just been like devoted his life to like studying proteins, how much protein we eat, how we process protein, why it's so important. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of the slide. And I'm going to re-review what he talked about as the ideal amount of protein per meal. Okay, so my formula for protein is 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. I think that's like the ideal amount. You know, the issue can be a little confusing is how do you determine exactly what your body fat, you know, what your body fat is? You can go online, you can Google it, and there are different calculators where you can enter your age and you can enter your activity level, and it'll give you kind of an idea. You know, you can just use like a waist circumference measurement based on your height. You know, but I'll give you a simpler way of doing it. But if you can figure out exactly what your body fat is, there's even those electrical impedance scales that you can step on that'll give you a pretty good idea. But for example, if you're 150 pounds and let's say you're 20% body fat, so you have 120 pounds of lean mass, you want about 108 grams of protein per day. So let's say you're a guy or a gal, you know, you're 150 pounds, you want to eat 110, 115 grams of protein every single day. That would be the adequate amount. If you want a much easier way of doing it, you can just multiply your body weight by 0.7. I think it's very close to that number. I used to say anyway, like 0.8, 0.6. I think 0.7 is a pretty good. What can mess up this formula if you're a really big guy or gal, let's say you're 300 pounds. I don't think you should necessarily be eating like 250 grams of protein, something like that. I think then you can go with your goal weight. You know, so say you're 300 pounds, your goal weight's 225. Base your calculations on your goal weight, which is 225 pounds. I think that'll be an adequate amount of protein. And I have to say, I've talked about this before, and I looked at the research, and I always felt that, first of all, number one, it's more important just to take in an adequate amount of protein, whether you're eating 1, 2, 3 meals a day. And I looked at this meta-analysis, and for many, many years, other research is saying that when it comes to protein synthesis, when it comes to like maintaining and muscle hypertrophy, putting on muscle, for a long time, people said, oh, don't eat more than 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal because your body is not going to utilize it. That's been somewhat debunked. And this meta-analysis I looked at, it brought the number back up to 60. But then I've even found some other studies showing that people who did the 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉 diet and took in like 80, 90 grams of protein in one meal even really did just as well as people who broke that up into 2 meals. But after listening to this podcast, which actually just aired last week, that I was talking about, where they had this PhD who just devoted his whole life doing studies on protein synthesis, you know, how much protein you should eat, the importance of essential amino acids. He was saying that he thinks like the sweet spot, the ideal amount of protein per meal is somewhere between 30 to 60 grams of protein per meal. And he specifically was talking about leucine. Leucine is one of those essential amino acids. You're going to see, I'm going to cover that in the next slide, that kind of stimulates mTOR, the growth factor. And he was saying you want about 3,000 milligrams of leucine per meal. to get a good response, good mTOR response, good protein synthesis response. But he was saying, depending upon how big you are, if you're a petite gal, maybe 30 grams is enough. If you're a big guy and you're working out all the time, maybe 60 grams. He thinks it's better to split up your protein as opposed to doing OMAD where you're just getting like 100 grams in one meal or something. He thinks the body will benefit more from taking between 30 to 60 grams. And I'm going to think along those lines now going forward, because I think this guy was really sharp. I even looked after the podcast. Sometimes these complex podcasts, they were talking about a lot of complex things. I go and I read the research and I kind of study exactly what this guy's saying. I'm going to start following him now, and like go over a lot of the studies that he's personally done. And he was also talking about, that's what kind of prompted me to do this live stream. He thinks the two most important meals, especially when you're intermittent fasting or time restricted eating or just in general, is the first meal of the day to take in anywhere between 30 to 60 grams of protein, and then also the last meal of the day, taking 30 to 60 grams of protein. He said he also would like to take a little bit more in between, but he thinks that's the most important based on mTOR. Because he says, like say you have your last meal at 8 o'clock at night, you're sleeping all night, right? You process the food, mTOR is down-regulated. You're not in that growth phase. You're in that repair mode. Maybe a little bit of autophagy is kicking in. Insulin levels are really, really low. You're recycling and fixing. He says, so when you wake up in the morning, mTOR is down-regulated. He said you want that up-regulation of mTOR. So, for example, if your first meal of the day didn't have protein in it, it's probably a mistake, I think. And he was saying that he thinks it's a mistake. He said you want that 30 to 60 grams of protein the first meal of the day. And then he also thinks before you go to sleep at night is also really important. And I'm in total agreement with that. The only negative, like once again, the only negative thing, for example, if you're a vegetarian, you're a vegan, and there is some research, and that's why a lot of people become vegetarians and vegans like for longevity, and they don't want to stimulate mTOR. They feel like 50 grams of protein is enough. This guy addressed that too in this podcast, and he doesn't think it's anywhere near close enough, and I'm in total agreement with that. Okay, so let's say, for example, so you're 150 pounds, you want to eat about 108, 110 grams of protein. I personally eat about 150 grams of protein a day, and I'm like 160 pounds, but I'm pretty lean. I like to say I'm around 10-12% body fat, and I feel a difference instantly. But I'm going to talk about some hacks, because what I was doing for a long time, and this is later on in the slides, is that I was really doing these 18-hour fasts pretty consistently, like time restricted eating. I don't know, I keep on talking about that I just turned 60, and that was a difficult number for me. And I do feel like I'm having a little bit of a harder time maintaining muscle mass. And I think a mistake I was making is not taking in a little bit of protein earlier in the day. Just like the live stream I did a couple of weeks ago talking about that one study about early time restricted eating, where due to your circadian rhythm, and due to other studies also talking about how taking protein in earlier in the day, like 10 in the morning, really helps you maintain and increase muscle mass. So a couple of changes I'm definitely going to make going forward. Either I'm really going to change my whole schedule where I pretty much do these, this 6 or 8 hour eating window where I break my fast at 10 in the morning and then stop eating kind of early, stop eating 3-4 in the afternoon, even though it's a little challenging. It's more challenging when my kids are home, because I really miss eating dinner with them. With my wife, I can just talk to her, have a glass of like 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃 water with some apple cider vinegar when she's eating. Or what I've been doing sometimes is I've been taking in a little bit of protein, 10 in the morning, and then still sticking to my 18-6. I kind of like that too. I'm going to do that going forward, even if it slightly breaks my fast. I'm not going to do something like, I'm not looking for a major insulin spike, eating something like high carby, but I'm probably going to take in some protein every single day at 10 o'clock. I think it's going to be good for my circadian rhythm. It's also going to be good for maintaining, increasing muscle mass. Plus, I'm going to get a little bit of an mTOR pop around 10 o'clock. I'm going to do that going forward. If you guys want to do it with me, I think it's going to be a good thing. I think that's going to be the direction, because I'm seeing more and more videos talking about this early time restricted eating. That last study really kind of shook things up a little bit, and there was a couple of other studies that Andrew Huberman talks about. That's the other guy I always mention on these live streams, the professor from Stanford. Love his podcast. It's called Huberman Labs. Definitely check it out. he kind of adjusted his fasting schedule to that as well, where he's eating earlier in the day based on the new research, how important it is to take in protein early in the day. Let's see, we got a couple of questions. Let's see. Thanks for the great info. Keep the great work up. Oh, thanks, Cornell. I really appreciate it. Cool. Thanks for showing up. Awesome. Gwen. I'm 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂. I'm more than 36% fat. Okay, well, that's okay. Hey, just take your body weight, right? Times it by 36%, right? That's going to be your lean mass, and then times that by 0.9. So it's good that you know what your body fat is, and those are your protein requirements. I'm going to talk about it more, but I like you to split it up then into like 2 meals, right? When you break your fast, and then your second meal, maybe before you go to dinner. And then if you need a little bit more protein, you can sneak in a protein shake in between those 2 meals. And I really do think it's like if you're doing this later time restricted eating or intermittent fasting where you're not breaking your fast till 1, 12, 2 o'clock, I really do think it's okay, even though you're going to slightly break your fast, to maybe do a protein shake at 10 o'clock. Maybe eat 2 or 3 hard-boiled eggs at 10 o'clock. Just don't mix it with like a high glycemic carbohydrate. Like if you're doing like a whey protein shake, yes, you're going to get an insulin spike, but you can get 25 grams of protein for like 100 calories, which is like nothing. You get a little bit of a spike. So I'm going to be a little bit more flexible with my fasting strategies going forward, just to ensure that I'm taking in enough protein. I think, and if you guys try it and let me know if it's working out for you, I think you'll notice a difference in a couple of weeks in just how you feel. If you feel like you're a little bit stronger at your workouts, if you feel like, maybe you're putting on a little bit of muscle, give it a try. Give it a try. Okay, so let's go over all these essential aminos. Let me blow this up. I think Jeff said so you guys can see it okay. Okay, these are the 9 essential amino acids, and that's what you may have heard the term complete protein. That's what people are talking about when they're talking about complete protein. The 9 essential amino acids that your body cannot make on their own. You have to get them through your diet. The confusing thing about these amino acids is that every protein source, even complete proteins, have a different amino acid profile. That's why I always like to say like a whey protein isolate, even a whey protein concentrate, is like the rock star protein powders, because it's really high in the important essential amino acids that are good for protein synthesis, which are the branched chain aminos, which are isoleucine, specifically leucine. That's what that researcher was saying. You want about 3,000 milligrams of leucine, and then valine. Those are the essential amino acids. Whereas other complete protein sources seem to have limiting amino acids. It is interesting because the researcher that I was talking about, I should have had his name, on the top of my head. I can't think of his name right now. On the podcast, we're talking about how like pea protein, which is a complete protein, is low, is like the limiting amino acid is I always pronounce this wrong. It's the one with the M, methylamine. I know I pronounced that wrong, but there are certain limiting amino acids in some complete proteins. So just think of the limiting amino acid as is one of the 9 essential amino acid that's really, really low. So sometimes you have to go in the amino acid pool, like muscle, to pull out that particular amino acid, which is not good. You're kind of like cannibalizing yourself to some degree. That's why it's so important to eat complete protein and different types of protein, because even like, for example, like eggs may not be as high in leucine as maybe like a whey protein, like a dairy, right? Like chicken may be high in some amino acids, lower in others. Steak is, so it's good. It's just how important it is, in my opinion, to eat a variety of different vegetables and fruits, like different colors, have different vitamins, different minerals, different nutrients. Different proteins have different amino acid profiles. But the key thing is to always make it a complete protein. That's why sometimes like vegetarians, vegans really have to make a conscious effort to make sure they're getting these essential amino acids. That's why you even see with some of these like vegan or vegetarian protein powders, if they put a pea protein in it, sometimes they mix it with another protein source like a hemp seed, or maybe like sometimes they take brown rice and break it down to increase that limiting amino acid. So it's really, really important. So like I said, the most important ones are isoleucine, leucine, and valine. Just make sure when you're picking protein, you're getting these essential aminos. Super, super important. Okay, so let's go over, like I kind of discussed it a little bit. Let's go over the my favorite complete protein sources. I'm a big believer in animal protein, no question about it. If for religious reasons or whatever, you don't want to eat animal protein, then I think to get your complete proteins, I would definitely supplement your diet with the pea, with the hemp, with things like that, for sure. But a general rule is when it comes to animal protein, every 4 ounces of, poultry, chicken, fish, and meat is about 25 grams of protein. So for example, if you want that 30 to 60 grams of protein, like, with the minimum of those 2 meals a day, or like when you're breaking your fast and you're going to have that first serving of protein, if you want 50 grams, you want a nice 8-ounce serving of protein. A general rule, I would say, if you're over 150, 160 pounds, I would definitely go with at least 8 ounces, maybe even a little bit more to get to that 60 grams. Maybe go 8 to 10 ounces of chicken, fish, and meat. But if you're a smaller person, more like a petite gal or something, say you're 115 pounds. My wife is 114 pounds. She can go with maybe like a 4 to 6 ounce serving, maybe like a 6 ounce serving of protein. Get that like 30, 35 grams of protein right there. Also, other great sources, like I say, great complete sources of protein are eggs. I love those pasture-raised whole eggs, which are great. Every egg's about 6-7 grams of protein. You can have a 4-egg omelet with vegetables. That's a great way to get 25 grams of protein or so. If I do that, since I would want more protein in my diet, I would make like an egg omelet and then maybe have a low, I still go low fat when I do my yogurt. Low fat Greek yogurt, 100 calories of Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt, you get 15 grams of protein. So for example, a 4-egg omelet, right, that's about 25 grams. Then I pump it up with a plain Greek yogurt. That gets me to 40 grams of protein right there. And I put a whole bunch of vegetables in the eggs. And I don't know, vegetarians talk about too. Oh yes, broccoli on a percentage basis is very high in protein. It is, and I think it is good. And I love broccoli, I eat a ton of broccoli. But to get like 50 grams of broccoli, 50 grams of protein from broccoli, you got to eat a field of broccoli, right? So when I'm making my eggs, I may throw some broccoli and some vegetables in there that has some protein in it too. But, make sure you're picking good, high quality sources of protein. Plant proteins, some people like soybean, which I think is great. Others need to combine rice and beans together. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, or you feel like you just don't want to eat too much animal protein, just make sure you're taking in enough complete protein. I'm going to really drive that point home. 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂, I use a you're using the bioimpedance scale. Oh, that's great. I think that's a good one, Gene. I think that sounds good to me. So you pretty much know what your body fat is, which is great. So you can calculate your protein requirements real easy. I know you're doing like a little bit of an old man with one extra meal, but I know that extra meal is no, I think you said you're doing 3 protein shakes, right? And then doing 1 meal. And I think so. You're probably getting a good amount of protein, which is key. Let's see what Gwen's got to say. Yeah. Okay, damn. I forgot to get eggs at the store yesterday. I did get salmon, cod, and vegetables though. That sounds good. Hey, you can next time you go to the store, pick up your eggs. The crazy thing about eggs is that I know I'm a big believer in those pasture-raised eggs, where the hens are allowed to just get out in the field, so it's hot. Like the fat profile in the yolk is so much better, but they're so much more expensive. I mean, I've seen a dozen eggs now in the store for like $8.99, which is like insane. But I buy my pasture-raised eggs at Whole Foods, and they're on sale all the time. So I buy that Vital brand, and I get them for about maybe $5.99, like something like that, a dozen. I know you can buy them for $1.99, like just the mass-produced ones, but it really is a difference. If money is a real issue, just buy anything. You just buy the eggs. But if you can spend a little bit of extra money, I would go with those pasture-raised, even more than just the organic. You really want the eggs that are eating the grass outside, because the amino acid profile is so much better, higher in the omega-3s. Okay. And then once again, when it comes to the protein powders, like I said, I love whey. I like a whey protein isolate as opposed to a concentrate, because everything's stripped out of it. You're just getting the amino acids. I love whole egg, 10 pea, all complete protein. I even like protein bars, like we talked about in the past. I like those no cow protein bars. I like them because they do combine the pea protein with like a brown rice, so it's eliminating that limiting amino acid, which is, I know it could be confusing, all that, but I like the no cow, and I also like those Quest bars because they're really high in fiber, and they give you like 20, 25 grams of protein a day. So for me, I can have like 60 grams of protein when I break my fast in one meal, another 60 grams of protein, which puts me at 120. And then all I need to do is have a protein shake or maybe have one of these protein bars, and I'm right at my 150 for the day. And I think that's a good plan for most people. Let's see what Blue Sky's got. I heard for us older guys, we need more protein because the body does not utilize it properly. So how much total protein in a day and how much protein each meal for protein synthesis? Yeah, no, I do agree with that, Blue Sky, no question about it. That's what the research is showing. The older you get, the more protein you need. But I would go with this formula. I would go, first of all, I would do what I said. I would take your body weight, try to calculate what your body fat is, multiply your lean mass by 0.9, whatever your number is. Let's say it's similar to me. Let's say it's 150. Say you want to take in 150 grams of protein. I wouldn't eat much more than 60 grams of protein per meal, right? So maybe say you're doing 2 MAD, which I do all the time. You're taking 60 grams of protein for one meal, which would be, say, what would that be? 8 ounces would be 50 grams. So maybe you want to go 10 ounces of, chicken, fish, and meat, some type of protein, right? Obviously, you don't want to just eat that. You want a couple of vegetables or a big salad with it. I'm going to go over my meals at the end. Then you want to do the similar thing for dinner. That'll put you at 120 grams. And then maybe you want to sneak in a protein shake or a protein bar in between. And if you're eating 3 meals a day, let's just assume you're doing a 16-8. So you have an 8-hour eating window. If you're doing 3 meals a day, then maybe you can do 8 and 8. That'll get you at 100, right? And then you may want to do like a big protein shake, or maybe a protein shake with, if you're doing, like, say you're doing a pea and hemp seed protein shake and you want to have a Greek yogurt, with it, that'll get you at the 150. And just be kind of close. Hey, if you're at 130 one day, maybe 160 the next day, I think you're going to be okay. Hey, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Okay. I hope that helped, Blue Sky. I hope that helped. Okay, let's go a little deeper into this. And this is another, like I talked about earlier in the live stream. This is what I'm going to start doing, and I'm going to recommend this to more of my clients. I've already recommended it to a number of them, and I think it's doing well. I think, another thing I should say, like, when you first start, like, intermittent fasting, like, let's say you first started just doing 16-8. Like, I have my course, my intermittent fasting course, where I ease people into it over like a 4-week period. I wouldn't worry too much about this protein hack. Like, if you just want to reduce calories, you want to increase your insulin sensitivity, right? You want a little bit of that autophagy. You just want to, like, start losing weight. I would just start these intermittent fasting strategies in whatever schedule that fits your lifestyle. For most people, it's so easy, just skipping breakfast, right? Having black coffee, having green tea, right? Drinking a lot of mineral water, breaking their fast at noon with a nice meal, have your last meal before 8 o'clock. And I think for a good stretch, you're going to do incredibly well with that. Because the most important thing, is my opinion, is to lose the weight, right? Improve your health. But once you've been doing this for a long time, me and my wife, I talk about this all the time. We've been experimenting and doing this stuff. I think it's well over 12 years now. I've been doing these fasting strategies. I find it's such an easy way to control calories. And out of all the diets I've been on, I've tried everything. I've been training people. I opened my gym in 1989, but even previous to that, I was working in those big box gyms. And I think these fasting protocols and strategies is the easiest way to get people to eat less. I mean, it really does work without counting calories, without doing all these cookie things. It makes people eat less, so it keeps calories under control. And I think the other thing that I do think is important is just to make sure you're taking in an adequate amount of protein. Calories and protein, by far the two most important thing that tracks. You can debate whether you want to eat a whole low carb, high carb, low fat, high fat. I lean towards low carb, but you can even get away with eating a high carb diet as long as you're taking an adequate amount of protein and you're keeping an eye on calories. But let's say you're someone like myself, or maybe other people in the live stream who've been fasting for a while. I do think now, based on all the new research and all the stuff I talked about earlier in this live stream, that it is important to take in protein earlier in the day. Due to your circadian rhythm, that internal 24-hour clock, and just due to the research, that it seems to show that you want that mTOR stimulation earlier in the day. It doesn't have to be 6 in the morning, but let's say around 10, like 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So going forward, I'm going to do two things. Either, and I've tried it, either I'm going to just change my fasting strategy and I'm just going to have my first meal 10 o'clock and then just stop eating around 4. I'm going to try that. I did that. I have a little bit of a harder time with that for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't like working out with a lot of food in my system, and I typically work out midday. And it's still a little bit of an issue socially, right? So what I think I'm going to do is that 10 o'clock every single day, I'm going to do like a protein, low-carb type snack. Even though it's going to break my fast, I don't think it's going to break my fast too aggressively, though. It's going to give me a little spike in insulin. So I'm going to have maybe 2-3 hard-boiled eggs, maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. It's going to kick in mTOR. It's going to give me some protein. It's not going to give me too much of a spike in insulin. I'm really going to try that. Or I might do a protein shake, taking 25 grams, 30 grams of protein right there at 10 o'clock. I may eat a protein bar, have a Quest bar, a no-cal bar. Or the other hack, if you're really concerned about breaking your fast, which I talked about in the past, you can take an essential amino acid supplement. I think 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂, he's got a good one, where you can take in the equivalent of about 25, 30 grams of protein with nominal, like almost no calories. So basically they have these protein powders, these essential amino acid powders that have almost no calories in them. So for example, a scoop of whey protein may be 100, 120 calories to get 25, 30 grams of protein. You can take in that same amino acid profile of a scoop of like a whey protein as an amino acid supplement and only take in maybe 20, 25 calories. That's another good thing to do. If you really are concerned, you really want to stay in that fasted state for whatever reason, maybe for health or you really want to keep an eye on calories, you can fool around with an essential amino acid supplement around 10 o'clock in the morning, which I think going forward, this is going to be my new fasting approach for sure, just to make sure I'm getting in enough protein and I'm stimulating mTOR earlier in the day. Let's see what Gene says. Okay, if you do a resistance program of compound exercises that raise the heart rate to 70% for 20 minutes, is it still necessary to do standard cardio training afterwards? You're always going to get, it's funny because everything intermixes and intertwines, right? Like when you're doing resistance training, yes, you are getting, even though you're primarily hopefully trying to get to those type 2 muscle fibers, which are burning carbohydrates, you're still strengthening your heart. It's like almost like doing an interval, right? You're spiking it. I do think though that it's nice to separate things from time to time to get the maximum benefit of each. So let's say if you're doing a resistance training program that raises your heart rate to 70% for 20 minutes, I still would do a little bit of aerobics too, Gene, if you have the time. If you don't have the time, you do incredibly well. One of the original guys I followed for many, many years, Clarence Bass, I don't know if you followed him. He read all those books, ripped. He was like a Mr. Olympia for guys over 40. I think he's like maybe he's in his 80s now. He used to write for Muscle and Fitness and all those like bodybuilding magazines. I'm sure excuse me. I bet he's still around. And he did no cardio, right? He pretty much felt like what you're saying. When you're lifting weights, you also are strengthening your heart. It's like doing interval training. He controlled his diet, controlled his weight mostly by calories and by diet, by eating enough protein. I would still do a little bit of aerobics. Like I talked about in some of the other live streams, I think the ideal thing when it comes to like increasing your VO2 max is just do a couple of those short interval workouts per week. No, maybe you want to just literally after a 20-minute workout, just to do like a 6 or 7 minute interval workout. You do 1 minute easy, 30 seconds really hard, 1 minute easy. Just spend 6-7 minutes a couple days a week doing something like that. And then I also do think, though, super important, but I think you're doing this, Gene, is those long, easy walks to base building. Building your aerobic base. The 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 formula where you take 180 minus your age. So I'm 60, keep my heart rate below 120. I think you get the best of all worlds. If you just had to do 2, you're probably getting the intervals from doing your resistance training. But I'm sure there are times when you're well over 70% of your max heart rate. If you're doing like a hard set, you might be at 80, 90% of your max heart rate and then your heart recovers. It is kind of like doing an interval, but it's still not quite the same as being at that, like, they call it like that anaerobic threshold when you're doing those hard intervals and you're feeling that little bit of a burn. But it is all connected and all intertwined. But I would also do some separate intervals too, Gene, if you can, and some separate cardio. Should I drink coffee with the eggs? Yeah, Gwen, why not? I would drink coffee with the eggs. Sure, I love coffee. Coffee, there's even, I think, who did that? There was another, I always reference podcasts. I've listened to so many podcasts. Rhonda Kaufman. She's another one of these really smart gals, I think PhD, and she interviewed a guy who was an expert on autophagy and everything, and he's saying, oh yeah, okay, it's good to drink coffee when you're in a fasted state. It promotes autophagy and things like that. It's a good thing to do. No, I'm a big believer in coffee, high in polyphenols. I think it's probably one of the healthiest beverages that people drink is coffee. You just can't ruin it with tons of cream and tons of sugar. Black coffee, even like a teaspoon of heavy cream or half and half, I think it's okay. If you gotta put like 1 teaspoon of sugar, fine. But if you can avoid it, I would avoid it. If you can. Let's see what Gene's got here. I really can't do more than 30 minutes a day, the weeks. So maybe 20 compound resistant exercise. I like that a lot, Gene. I love it. I think that's great. But I would only do that though. I can't do more than 30 minutes a day during the week. But I don't think you need more than 3 days of resistance training per week. I mean, I don't think you have to do something every day. 3 days of resistance training per week with that 10 minutes of HIIT afterwards. And then the other days, I would love you just to maybe take a 30-minute walk or to use any piece of aerobic equipment you have in the house that, 180 minus your age, whatever that max number is, at your max aerobic zone. For me, it's 120. I don't think you have to do resistance training every single day. I mean, you could if you want to, but then you really got to split things up to make sure you're not like push-pull. You make sure you're not overtraining anything. But the general rule for hypertrophy, 10 sets per body part per week, I think is like a nice number. And then you have to keep in mind too that when you're training like your bigger body parts, like your chest, your back. When you're training your chest, you're working your deltoids, your shoulders, and your triceps, right? When you're training your back, you're working your biceps, you're working your forearms. So when I say 10 total sets per week, when it comes to training your arms and stuff, you don't have to do anywhere near as much because you already hit them so well when you're doing your big push and pull movements, right? So keep that in mind too. Okay, missed my question. Okay, let's see what you are. Let me backtrack. Why don't you, if you don't mind, ask it again, because maybe it did not come up in the feed. But let me look on my phone, because sometimes some of these questions on the feed, they don't come in the feed, and they only show up on my phone. But I don't see it on the phone either. But let me see to make sure. Yeah, why don't you ask it again? Sorry about that. Let's see. It didn't come up. Let me pull it up. Okay. What about kelp, Mike? I like it for several things. Is it safe, heavy metal-wise, arsenic, lead, mercury? To be truthful, you may know a little bit more about kelp than me. I don't really consume too much of it. I know there's issues people talk about, metals and arsenic and lead and mercury and things like that. I can't say that. Sorry about that. I can't say that I'm an expert on that. But after this, obviously, when I don't know something, I want to learn about it. So I will definitely Google it. I won't do it today because I'm going to Connecticut actually later today. But I will Google it, and maybe we'll discuss it maybe next week, or I'll do like a quick, maybe short video on it if you like. But if you know something about it, please let me know. Okay. Hey, like, do you do meditation or yoga at all? Well, this is what I do. I first of all, I think meditation is great. And I love that book, 10% Happier. I forget the guy's name who wrote it. It was a great book. He even has an app. There are times in my life when I did meditation, but what I do daily all the time, and I do it multiple times during the day, is that Andrew Wild 4-7-8 breathing. I think it makes a big difference, and I think is the easiest way to introduce yourself to a breathing practice, and maybe even just kind of like meditation. And all you do is you breathe in. I take my tongue, which is like a yoga thing. I put it on the roof of my mouth. I breathe in for 4 seconds through my nose. I hold that breath for 7 seconds, and then I blow out slowly for 8 seconds. And I only do maybe 4 to 6 cycles of that. And I find it to be so relaxing. I find that if I wake up in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep, before I start thinking about anything, I do 1 round of the 4-7-8 breathing. Sometimes, unfortunately, my wife said it wakes her up, so I have to be a little careful with it. But I go right to sleep. I do it before I get out of bed every day. So I wake up, the alarm goes off. First, I do like 4 to 6 rounds of that 4-7-8 breathing, then I get up. I like to, when I first jump into bed, I like to do it. If I get into a traffic jam or this or that, I do it all the time. I really love it. When it comes to yoga, I've worked in, like I said, I don't do yoga in my gym, but when I worked in those big box gyms for like 10, 15 years, there was always a yoga class going on. I would jump in there, but I'm not a yoga expert, but I think yoga is great. I love the meditation aspect of it. I do think you have to be a little careful though with it. You have to, when you say yoga nowadays, just like you say, it would be like saying, go work out. It can mean 1,000 different things. There's so many different types of yoga and this and that. I think there's pros and cons to all of it, but I think it's great. I think, I'm a big believer in just movement in general. Any movement that doesn't cause pain, you should do. I really like all forms of exercise. There's not one form that I think is good. I think you should move around as much as you can pain-free. And to me, I think walking is like the best thing most people can possibly do for their health. It's like just to walk consistently every single day. You do your 5,000 to 10,000 steps every single day, and then a little bit of resistance training. But you get resistance training with yoga too, right? And the mobility, all that stuff I think is awesome. Okay, let's see. Until now, I say no reason to take it. Yeah, the kelp. Yeah, I'm not that familiar with it. I know spirulina. I used to take spirulina like as a supplement because it was like marked as like a superfood, high protein algae type thing. But I never looked at the components of even spirulina, where they could have mercury and stuff like that in it. Interesting talk on it from several comments. I concluded it's not a problem. It sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, from the website. Actually, I guess you did. You just looked it up. Okay. Let's see what we got here. From the website, how much kelp would you have to eat to overdose on iodine besides it has a buffer? Well, okay. Cool. Okay, thanks for answering, Mike. Did walking backwards help your knee? Yes, it definitely has helped my knee, but it's interesting. I've still been doing the walking backwards every single day. I haven't really started pulling the sled, which I want to do, but I recently had a new MRI on my knee, on my bad knee, and I never had a 3T MRI. Now they have these new machines. All my MRIs in the past have been a 1.5. So I went to this new doctor. He wasn't a surgeon. He was a sports medicine doctor, which I think those guys are a little bit guys and gals are a little bit nicer. They give you more time. They really try to think a little more out of the box on how they can help you. So I just got the results back from this 3T. And it showed that my knee was no worse than my previous MRI, which I had in 2017. But he's still not sure like what to do. I'm supposed to actually see him next week. I may delay it one more week. But what he wants to do is, I do have a little bit of arthritis in the trochlear groove. That's like the femur, that little groove, and a little bit of arthritis behind my kneecap, but not down to the bone. It's like they, on a 1 to 4 rating, like a 4 would be like a bone-on-bone type thing. This MRI said I was a 2-3, right? I don't think that's my issue because this pain in my knee started 2 weeks after I had knee surgery like 15 years ago. And I think it has something to do with whether it's scar tissue or maybe a chronic patellar tendonitis that never went away or plica syndrome. I think those are the different opinions I had over the years. What he wants to do next week, he wanted to inject a Novocaine into my knee, in the capsule of the knee. And he said, Mike, if your knee feels better from that, it'll give us a clue that maybe it is the arthritis in your knee and not these other things, which are like outside the capsule, which could be like scar tissue or fatty pad, Hoffa pad syndrome, which I might try that. And then he said, if that's the case, then we'll do the gel injections. But I tried those gel injections years ago. It didn't help me, but who knows? But my knee is actually definitely from the walking backwards, and I've been pretty conservative lately. My knee's not feeling all that horrible right now. I'm still not going to go squat a ton of weight or anything like that, but my knee's feeling a little bit better than it has in the past, so I'm kind of excited about that. That's why I want to delay this appointment one more week or two, and before I get the Novocaine injection. But I appreciate you asking. Thanks a lot. That's something nice of you to ask. Okay, so let's go over. This is one of my favorite parts. Let's go over some of my meals. And this is what I mean by like prioritizing protein. And since I don't eat like a traditional breakfast,
because like I always say, you know, I'm doing more of those 16-8, those 18-6 like fasting strategies. This is like a typical meal. And this would be a little bit of a day where I'm eating like more of a low calorie type day. Also, like I always talk about in these live streams, I'm also a big believer in cycling calories. Like some days eat more, some days eat less. Good for your metabolism. The days you eat more, you kind of like boost up your metabolism. When you're in aggressive calorie deficit, yes, your metabolism slows down a little bit. So, you know, it's called metabolic adaptation. So I like to minimize that by some days eating more, eating less. So this is really a meal that's really high in protein. Those are 3 pretty big, those are pork chops, pretty big, and they're relatively lean, pretty big pork chops. I must be having at least 10 ounces of protein right there. Let's see what Gene's got. Gene, since the beginning of the year, I lost 50 pounds. Awesome. And it's amazing, the health benefits I got. My back pain decreased 75%. Awesome, Gene. Love it. My joints are less painful, and I sleep on my back again. Oh, that's awesome, Jim. I'm so happy for you. That's really great. I know. That's the thing, too. I even find, even with my knee, when I'm a little bit leaner, when I'm my leaner weight, I think my knee even feels better, too. That's another reason why I think my knee's feeling better. I've been eating really good lately, and I feel like I'm getting... I look better now than I did when I just turned 60, like at the end of August. And I think I'm going to make another run at it to really get down kind of low, you know, before Christmas, which is going to be kind of fun. Let's see what Jeff's got to say. What about using a few ounces of a protein shake in your coffee? I do this sometimes too. You know, I really like that. I think that's a great thing to do that. You know, to get that little bit of that mTOR, to make sure you're getting enough protein for the day, to make sure, you know, you're maintaining, or if not increasing your muscle mass like earlier in the day. I think that's a great way to do it, Jeff. I mean, you can even do the essential aminos. You can dump in there, throw half a scoop of protein powder, get 15 grams of protein. I think that's a good thing to do. Yes, it will technically break your fast a little bit, but I like that 1,000 times more than, like, you know, putting those, you know, medium chain triglycerides, you know, putting the fat or putting butter in your coffee. I'd much rather you throw a scoop of, or half a scoop of protein powder in there, no doubt. Healthy Hollow, let's see. I'm trying to cycle more calories on some days. I've been OMAD for some time now, and I'm getting too little. My family and friends are really on me about gaining some weight. Yeah, you know, that could definitely happen. But if you watch some of my other videos, I do like the OMAD diet. I definitely do like it. But I like it more intermittently. If you do it every single day, it's really hard to take in an adequate amount of protein long term. Yeah, I mean, I think still, like I said earlier about like my course, you know, the most important thing is to lose the weight, right? And get to an optimal weight, get your numbers, get your blood work in line. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing the OMAD diet like every day for a month, 5-6 weeks, but then you have to take a diet break or you got to switch over to something else. I love the OMAD diet intermittently, but when I would do the OMAD diet, I like the concept of 1.5 meals. Meaning that you have your normal, good, healthy meal with a bunch of vegetables, maybe one fruit, a really nice, big, healthy piece of complete protein. I'd probably go above the 60 grams, you know, because your body uses protein. Like everything I was quoting, and even that professor I was talking about, we're talking about eating protein for protein synthesis, for like hypertrophy, for maintaining muscle mass. But, you know, protein, your body is like a matrix of collagen and protein, your skin, your hair, your nails. Your body's going to use that protein. Not necessarily to put on muscle, even if you go above the 60 grams. So if you do an OMAD, I would do more than 60 grams of protein. But what I would love you to do, maybe you want to do this now, is do 1.5. Have a second meal, like a small meal, and it could be something like this. Maybe not 3 pork chops, but try 1.5. So say you're breaking your fast with that OMAD meal. Say you eat from like 5 to 7, or maybe from, I don't know what your schedule is, 6 to 7. Around 3-4 o'clock, have a high protein small meal. Do something like this. You know, this is half an avocado, a handful of organic grapes, and 3 pork chops. Do 1 or 2 pork chops. I think you'll benefit from that. That's, you know, if you love the OMAD thing, you want to stay with it. Or you can just go to something a little less aggressive and just do a 16-8 or an 18-6, more what I'm talking about, and just see how you do. You know, and just keep calories under control. But definitely take in more protein, for sure. Let's see, okay. What blood markers do you suggest checking, Mike? Cholesterol, triglycerides. A1C, any others, maybe CRP. Yeah, I would definitely look into all those. Another thing you may want to look into, I think the even the expanded cholesterol, the VLDL, and the ApoB. What's that? The ApoB. That's the one that Peter T talks about all the time. It's also maybe good to know if you're little a. The little a is that other like genotype, that gene, the snippet that unfortunately like 25% of the population has it. It puts you at higher risk for like heart disease and things like that. Like if you're little a, you want to be extra careful, or some doctors will just instantly put you on a statin automatically. I know Peter T would do that if you're little a, because it just increases your risk of clogging your arteries, and just unfortunately just a thing that you're born with. I think that guy, what was his name from The Biggest Loser, that trainer, was it Bob Green? Was that his name? Who had the heart attack? He was in good shape. He was at a reasonable weight. He had a heart attack and he contributed like he was a little a. He didn't know it. I mean, there's so many different expanded. CRP is good. There's so many different expanded blood works you can do. See, I'm a little neurotic when it comes to this stuff. I don't like to over check myself. I would do like a normal blood work of cholesterol. I think it's like a normal cholesterol. If your triglycerides are low and your HDL, the high density lipoproteins, are high, and you have a good ratio there, I think your cholesterol is probably good, right? The A1C, I mean, it's nice if it's below 5.2, right? If you can do that. A1C, for people to know, that's the hemoglobin number. It kind of shows how your body's been processing carbohydrates. Like diabetics, if you ever go to your doctor, like if you're really overweight, you go to your doctor, he or she is probably going to just instantly do an A1C on you, and just to see if you're pre-diabetic or if you're heading in the wrong direction. Then you want to, reduce calories, lose some weight, minimize your carbs, right? But I have clients who, spend thousands of dollars on blood work, get this expanded blood works, and look at things. They show me the blood work. I don't even understand half of it. I know the basic numbers. But I think the big ones are the ones that you're talking about, for sure. But maybe little a. I probably would do little a too. Let's see. Happy Hollow. I appreciate the advice. No, my pleasure. That's great. Try it. Yeah, try 1.5. Maybe up a little bit. Okay, let's go with another meal. That's my pork chops. Ooh, this looks good. Doesn't this look great? I love making this. I think I did a short video. I hope everyone's enjoying my shorts. I've been doing a lot of shorts lately. And it's interesting. The shorts, have been getting some views. I'm not sure who's seeing them though, because I don't get too many comments. But I'm still going to try to do one long form video every week. I recorded one yesterday, just a normal, which I haven't done in a while, like maybe 5-minute video, actually talking about a little bit what we're talking about today. Which is like an 18-6 diet, 2 meals a day with a protein shake, and I kind of explained all the reasons why I think that's such a good strategy for so many people to reduce weight and improve your health. But this is like an incredible meal. This is actually a pound of shrimp. I may have gone a little bit too much, so a pound of shrimp would give me roughly about 100 grams of protein. But this was like it was pretty expensive. These shrimp, these were Gulf shrimp. They were on sale. Just loved it. And I put it on top of an arugula salad. I always love arugula, my favorite microgreen. Like I always say, high in nitrates, naturally high nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide. So nitric oxide is such a big thing, especially to get older. Great for blood flow, great for exercise performance, can even potentially help people lower blood pressure. Increasing nitric oxide is so important. So I got about 100 grams there. 100 grams of arugula gives you about 480, 500 milligrams of nitrates, which is awesome. Got an avocado. I eat an avocado every day. Cut up an orange. I've been eating more fruit lately. I really like it. I've been eating like at least one fruit every single day. This is just like the perfect high protein meal. I don't think you can do better than this. Something like, love it. Let's go over another. I've been eating a lot of these arugula salads lately. And this is generally like my first meal of the day. Even if I'm doing like a protein shake at 10 o'clock or eating 2-3 hard-boiled eggs at 10 o'clock. This is like really my post-workout, maybe my 2 o'clock, by 2 o'clock meal. So instead of the shrimp, I went with a bunch of salmon. And if you notice there's some grapes again. The grapes have just been on sale at my local market, and they're so good. I don't need too many of them because they are kind of a little high in fructose, a little high in sugar, but I still just put a handful in and some blueberries in there. I threw in some cashews, and I always have, I may not talk about this a lot, I always put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, but I always put balsamic vinegar, because balsamic vinegar, just like apple cider vinegar, helps control blood sugar post-meal. You know, kind of like clears glucose. So it like slows the digestive process. There's different mechanisms why people think the acetic acid or why vinegar works, but it really does work. There's some pretty decent research on it. So if I don't do a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a glass of mineral water, which I do that a lot too before a meal to help control blood sugar, just like berberine, taking a berberine supplement really works like metformin. Metformin is a diabetic medication to help like clear glucose. I've even heard Andrew Huberman talk about it. He does it all the time, and he you know, it really does work. Berberine is definitely a great supplement if you want to fool around with it. Be careful with it though. Don't take it like on an empty stomach. I know a lot of keto people like to do that because it can lower your blood sugar too much, and you can get like a headache and feel weird on it. But like if I do a cheat meal, say I'm going to go out every now and then and just eat like a whole pizza or something, I'll take some berberine before, or maybe before holiday, like before Christmas or something, like Thanksgiving, I may take some berberine, you know, which is definitely kind of a good thing to do. So this is like, I think, another like just perfect eating. And this is how you get enough protein, you get your vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. And I also heard another guy talk about, I know a lot of people, once again, like a vegetarian or vegan, said, oh my God, what are you crazy? Way too much protein. You're stipulating too much mTOR. You know, mTOR is going to feed cancer cells, feed tumors. But I heard another podcast. I'm trying to think. I can't even remember who the podcast was, but this was a guy. You know, next time when I do these live streams, I'm going to take notes. I'm going to pronounce these people's names, who they're talking about. But this is another guy who had his PhD. And he devoted his life to the research and to protein and things like that. And he was talking about how when you really look at the studies when they're talking about how animal protein like causes cancer, and you really break it down, like for example, one study showed like people who ate like a high protein diet, but they were more like a meat and potatoes type person, like they were eating high protein, but they really weren't eating fruits and vegetables. And that, yes, that high protein group that wasn't eating fruits and vegetables did have a higher occurrence of cancer, like they were stimulated into it so much. But then when they compared it to people who also ate a high amount of protein, same amount, but they also were eating also a lot of fruits and vegetables along with it, there was no increase in cancer rate. So, you know, this nutrition thing is so complex. The key is to eat, you know, eat your fruits, eat your vegetables, eat your greens, eat these microgreens along with the protein. That's why I feel that like there's even like the carnivore diet has progressed to so many different things. And I've talked about this in the past too, like Paul Saladino. These carnivore guys and gals, a lot of them now may start off being very strict with the carnivore diet, but now they're eating fruit along with it. I like that diet, like carnivore, you know, animal protein with organ meats, but a reasonable amount of fruit. Like Paul Saladino, I think eats like 300 grams of like fruit every day. But I always bring this up too. He's also incredibly active. He like surfs 2-3 hours a day. So, I mean, it's important. Once again, you want the protein, but even if you're eating 150 grams of protein, that's not a crazy amount of calories. But still, you're eating a ton of vegetables and greens and some fruits. And like, this is the perfect meal. Like, once again, 8-10 ounces of grilled chicken breast. You know, I made this with extra virgin olive oil. I seasoned it up with salt, my Redmond's mineral salt, which I love, a little oregano, a little pepper, extra virgin olive oil. Got the balsamic vinegar, and avocados in here, a handful of those like organic blueberries. This is like perfect eating in my opinion. I love shrimp fried in olive oil. Ooh, that sounds pretty good. I love that. Sounds good to me. Miller, thanks for the show. Have a good day. Oh, thanks, Miller. Yeah, I'm going to end pretty soon. I'm almost done. I'm actually going to Connecticut today. I'm looking forward to it, which should be a lot of fun. And it's pouring out today. I don't think I can do my outdoor walk. I may jump on the Nordic track though before I go to Connecticut. I think I got maybe maybe one more meal, which is going to be along the same lines. Let's see what we. It's funny. This is kind of twisted the wrong way. But so this is also, I think, just like a perfect meal. Just think, if this is not salmon, this looks like Arctic char to me. This must have been a leftover piece of Arctic char. What I got, at least 4-6 ounces there. So we're talking 30 grams of protein, maybe more. You know, I'm a sardines guy. I always talk about sardines. This is a can of sardines, 25 grams of protein in sardines. And I love the idea of eating the whole sardine. You know, the head's cut off because you're getting the skin, you're getting the connective tissue, you're getting the bone. So it's actually high in calcium. I think that was a question I had on a video recently. Like, how do I get my calcium? And This is one of the ways. Besides, I do eat, Greek yogurt and things like that, and a lot of broccoli. And then my avocado and my blueberries. I mean, this is just like a killer meal. I mean, you can't get any healthier than this, I don't think, Could be a lunch, could be a dinner, could be just can eat at any time. Let's see what Gene's got to say. Okay, so Gene's eating only 1,000 calories a day. I get the impression that doing long, strenuous exercise like I did last weekend will just trigger my appetite again. I would say yes to some degree, Gene. No question about it. The harder and longer you exercise, the hungrier it's going to get you. But I would say just find that perfect mix. It's kind of interesting. I forget who like where I saw this, but Precision Nutrition. I forget the guy's name. It's a John Berardi. No, he's the founder of that. I think he sold it for like tens of millions of dollars. Precision Nutrition is like a course that a lot of fitness people and even like chiropractors and physical therapists take, and it kind of certifies you as I always want to do it as a nutritionist. One day I'll probably do it. And he talks about the concept of increasing calories, but at the same time increasing exercise activity. Like, for example, let's say you're eating 2,000 calories a day, but you're burning like let's go week to week. Let's say whatever the amount of calories you're taking in is equal to the amount of calories you're burning, and you're at equilibrium. But then he says if you increase your calories and then you increase your exercise, like what's going to happen? Are you going to lose weight? You're going to gain weight? He thinks your body composition will probably change. You'll probably stay the same weight, but maybe you'll burn more fat because you're exercising more, right? And maybe you'll put on more muscle. So there's definitely something to that. It's always been a very debatable, confusing thing. It's like the whole calories in, calories out. There's definitely something to do that, no question about it. But in your case, Gene, I know you're probably taking in enough protein because we talked about it. I know you're doing like the 𝘾𝙃 with maybe like 2 or 3 shakes. Hopefully you're getting enough potassium, magnesium. 1,000 calories, I know you're doing that very low calorie diet, is very aggressive. But maybe you want to increase it a little bit, or maybe cycle, right? One day do this, maybe the next day jump up to 12, 15, 16, but maybe you want to, it may, make you a little bit hungrier, exercising more, but maybe you can take in a little more calories. It may not hurt you. It may be a good thing. You're going to just have to experiment, It's hard for me to give you a concrete answer. Let's see what Jeff's got to say. On the days where I don't do, on the days I don't get done with tennis till around 8:30 p.m. I know Jeff now is an avid tennis player. I've been just having the vegan amino acid powder and not having any meal till the next day. And I haven't been too hungry. That sounds great. I think that's a good thing to do. And that's even something maybe you can experiment with Gene too. Maybe if you're hungry, you could try something like that if you would still want to keep the calories down. Maybe in a sense, I know it's a little expensive though. That vegan one was inexpensive, but they're gone. I don't even see them anymore. I don't know if they went out of business. They were on sale. I bought a whole bunch of them. Maybe you can do something that's pretty low calorie that, like eat 2 or 3 hard-boiled eggs, or do something like that, essential amino acid supplement, but that kind of can curb your hunger, where you don't have to increase your calories too much. Maybe that could possibly help if you're increasing your exercise. Let's see. Hey Craig, thanks for showing up again. I appreciate it. Hey Mike, what would you say the maximum amount of net carbs per day would be to still be considered low carbs? Yeah, it's kind of hard to define low carb, but I think 50 is pretty good. I mean, some people feel 50 even net grams could put you in a mild state of ketosis. It's hard to say. I've experimented with both. There are many times when I just ate like 50 grams of net carbs. I even think 100 grams of net carbs is still a relatively good low carb diet. 50 net grams could put you in ketosis. It just depends how active you are. But it's hard to say. But I know you seem to be right around it. I don't know if you're checking your blood for ketones or doing anything, or doing urine strips, or if your goal is to be in ketosis or not. But I'm not a big fan of the ketogenic diet, like long term. I think it's a fun thing to do now and then, like to kind of reset yourself. And I do consider myself somewhat fat adapted. But I try to stay around 100 grams of carbs a day, maybe a little more on other days. And I don't really go too much into the net carbs. Every now and then I do. I'll just go like total carbs myself. Let's see. Okay, Mike, are you not eating vegetables like sprouts or broccoli? Most of your pics are not showing them. Yeah, sorry about that. No, I do eat a lot of that. I really do. The interesting thing is that most of my pics, and I really should do something about this, or is my first meal of the day, because it's light out. Like I generally have trained clients in the morning. I work out. I'll come home like 1, 2 o'clock, and then I'll eat. I'll have my meal. I take a picture of the meal. I've been doing these shorts of those meals, those short videos. But in the evening, it's like it gets dark. I eat like 7:30. I'll have my last meal of the day, or my second meal. And I'm eating with my wife, or my kids are home. I just don't want to the food's hot. I just don't want to take the time to put all the lights on and set up a whole thing to take pictures. But I really should do more things along the lines of that, because my dinners I'll start doing a few more. My dinners definitely, I eat tons of broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower. I eat tons of things like that. That's why the lunch is so much easier. Is a little more salad, like arugula salad base. I just quickly put something in the pan and just make it up. I'd have the sardines out of a can, or I make eggs or things like that. But you're right. I do eat a lot of those type foods. I just don't really take enough pictures of them. But I'll do it going forward a little bit. Let's see, Gene. Okay. If you need to chat again, maybe just eat ground beef patties until I'm full. Yes, I think that's good too. I think that's a great thing to do. Definitely, Gene. And sometimes, there's probably a little bit of a psychological component. There is with me too. If you think you're going to be really hungry from doing more exercise, I'm sure you will be to some degree more hungry, but I'm sure that can be a little bit of a component too. But if you know that you can do something like that, like have a couple of ground beef patties, or you can do something, just nip it. Right, nip it in the bud. It can really help, for sure. All right, guys. Good. Let's go. I actually am a little tighter on time today because I want to get out to Connecticut. But any other questions before I go? All right, guys. Once again, I really appreciate everyone showing up. This is fun. I love doing it. Thanks again for the super chat, Gene. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a wonderful week, and I'll see everyone next Sunday. Thanks again for showing up. Take care, everyone.